Big news for today is the new book, Selling Buildings, by Bob Knakal and Rod Santomassimo.
Barbara Corcoran says you must read this book.
Yes.
Is available on Amazon as of today. And they were our guests. What'd you think? I mean,
Man,
I know these guys pretty well, especially Rod, but
Right.
I've known Bob for over 10 years and got to spend some time with him on a number of different occasions.
Right.
Yes.
Rod's got incredible energy. Every time you meet him, he's always upbeat and he's excited to be there.
I'm excited, Bo. I'm so excited.
Last time we had Bob Knakal on, first of all, New York Times named him the kingpin of real estate.
I always said I wanted to get to 3,000 buildings sold. Maybe I should be looking at 4,200.
So when I looked that up before he came on I was like, well, that's cool. Oh, this is a real guy here. I'm blown away. Every single time we talk to him about his attention to detail when it comes to data and numbers.
A lot going on. A lot of office to resi conversion. A lot. Yeah, there's 57 going on now for 21.4 million square feet. There's a lot going on. Anybody could say that.
We saw very clearly why he has sold the most buildings of anybody ever.
Yeah, and if anybody sold more, they probably didn't track it enough to be able to prove it.
That's right. He's the only one that could prove it.
We figured out a few things on this episode.
Yeah.
One is, as of this recording, he sold 2,351 buildings over a almost 41-year career. That's 57 buildings a year, or over one a week.
Wow.
For his entire career.
Yep.
In the most competitive market,
New York City.
at least in the United States, probably in the world.
Yeah.
And he's done it with relationships, relentlessness, data,
Curiosity. Conviction.
They sent me a chapter of the book.
Right.
And it was on 9/11. What did Massey Knakal, their company at the time, do after 9/11? And it was fascinating. It took me back. I remember those days.
Yeah, learning about how they wrote the book, telling stories while also highlighting the key takeaways from it and how it revolves around the decisions that they made in their business or in his business there is really what got me to wanting to read this book. That's not my field at all. It kind of is now. I'm kind of a commercial real estate guy in a way.
Well, you're in the industry.
I'm in the industry. Yeah, in this side of the industry. So hope y'all enjoy it. This is an incredible start to season 3.
Yep.
And we're back, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we didn't really even announce the end of season 2. So if you've wondered where we've been for the last handful of weeks,
yes,
we were in between seasons. We were gearing up for season 3. This is a fantastic episode to kick it off, and we're glad to see you again.
Yeah, we're back. We're sorry we missed you. We missed you.
We did.
If you
We
missed
missed
us.
you.
Yeah, here we are. We're here. Here we are again.
That's right. Tell your friends. Hey, if you're new to commercial real estate investing, you probably know the feeling. Brokers, underwriting, raising capital, where do you even begin? And that's why CRE Investor Coach exists, to give new and emerging investors a clear step-by-step path to closing their first deal. I believe in this program so much, I actually joined the team as an adjunct faculty member. That's how committed I am to helping more people get into the space right now. Whether you want to go at your own pace with on-demand training, launch your first investment with expert coaching, or scale with a mastermind of other ambitious investors, there's a roadmap here for you. Inside, you'll learn how to define your investor identity, analyze deals with confidence, talk to brokers like a pro, raise capital, and build a real acquisition pipeline without all the guesswork. This is about building a business that blesses your life, not breaks your spirit. So if you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and actually get in the game, check out the link in the show notes and start your journey today. Learn, launch, and scale with CRE Investor Coach.
Welcome to Commercially Speaking. I'm Timmy Barron, ADHD.
And I'm Bo Barron, CCIM.
And this is the Commercial Real Estate Investing Podcast where my brother Bo teaches me everything about commercial real estate. He's an expert. I am not. I'm becoming one. Like we're, over 100 episodes in now.
You're much closer.
I'm much closer. I don't know if I'll be an expert, but I do have a huge appreciation for what my brother and our dad has done that I had no idea about. You see, I'm an actor and a comedian, and Bo here has taken the torch and is the owner-director of Barron Commercial Group, and he's also a co-founder of Hearthstone Fund, CCIM instructor. You couldn't get a better guy to teach you commercial real estate than this guy right here. And lucky for me, he's my brother, so...
Yeah. Well, that's very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, we got some guests today.
Dude, I've been excited about this one.
Both of these guys have been on the show before.
Yep.
If you want to hear their background stories, you can go and we'll link their previous episodes in the show notes. In fact, as I was looking at the data, Bob Knakal, one of our guests today, his previous episode is our #1 episode of all time.
Well, why wouldn't it be?
And Rod Santomassimo, our other guest, his previous episode is a top 5. for us all time.
Why wouldn't it be?
Why
Hey,
would
Bo, let me know numbers 2, 3, and 4 so I can make sure we get rid of those guys.
Well, one of them's our mom. So if you give her another couple weeks, she's probably going to be number one.
She might beat you both.
But so we're not going to do that.
I feel bad for beating mom out. Somehow we have to fix the numbers so that she's ahead.
Hey, she's only been, her episode was our 100th episode. This will probably be our 101st episode.
That's right.
So.
Okay, but hold it. Seriously, this is serious. This because Bob, we're going to talk about numbers with Bob, and people take for granted certain numbers, right? But I want to commend you both. If you're telling me now, how long have you been doing this, guys? How long have you been doing this?
A little over
show?
2 years.
Yep.
In 2 years, you've gotten to 100 episodes.
Yep.
That is freaking phenomenal.
Well,
it
thanks,
is.
man.
It's absolutely phenomenal what you have done. It's and besides doing 100 episodes, there are 100 awesome episodes, which is even better, right?
Well, thanks.
So kudos to you both.
And we
Thank you.
we could do a whole episode on this idea, but the reason this works is I have the right who's in place to make it happen. So like Timmy's our main who, Alice does all the producing, scheduling. I could never have done this on my own in any way.
Yeah, you could say we're Bo's owls.
Yeah,
right? Just hooing around. Yeah. Hoot.
But the whole who not what idea is why this show works. And
Who not how?
Who not how?
It's a great accomplishment. Congratulations.
Yes.
Thanks, Bob.
Well, thanks. Well, look, we have you guys back on for a very specific reason. You guys are about to launch a book called Selling Buildings.
Maximizing Prices and Profits in Commercial Real Estate by Bob Knakal and Rod Santomassimo.
That's right. So tell us a little bit, like, why'd you write the book? Like, Rod, this is your 5th or 6th book. I get it.
5.
But Bob, why write a book? Why go through the brain damage?
Well, a number of reasons, Bo. I think, but what I will say is that I think if you look at my journey along my career, and particularly the Massey Knakal years, which was 26 years and 46 days of owning and running Massey Knakal, there was a lot to be proud of in those days. From 2001 to 2014, when we sold the business, the number 2 company in New York City had sold about 1,300 properties. Massey Knakal sold over 4,000. So we were a little local popcorn stand of a company competing against regional, national, and global firms, and we were eating their lunch every day. We 3x the competition 14 years in a row. That I'm proud of. Paul and I started the business just with the 2 of us and a secretary, sold it for $100 million. We're proud of that. But by far and away, the legacy that I'm most proud of was the fact that today in the New York City investment sales world, there are 31 companies or divisions of companies that are owned by or run by people that learn the business at Massey Knakal. And I think that is a testament to the fact that we ran the business with a servant leadership management style and encouraged people to do better than their best, invested in them in training, invested in building their self-esteem. And there's something extraordinarily rewarding about that. So part of the reason for writing the book from my perspective was, number one, it's been a 40-year journey, and I've learned a lot of lessons, made thousands of mistakes, learned from those mistakes. But by writing this book, I think I could help people avoid making a lot of the mistakes that I made. I think it also can help real estate market participants, whether you're a broker or an investor, pick up some things that will help you do better in this business. And that's something that, that feeling of helping people and tangibly changing their lives has been something that has been very, very rewarding for me. So, the book is a synopsis of my 40-year journey, the various inflection points that we came to. Did we decide to go right or go left? Why did we make that decision? How did that decision work out? We tell deal stories along the way, really getting under the hood to look at what drove the seller crazy, what drove the buyer crazy, how did you make the deal, had you solve impasses? And those deal stories are very indicative of what was happening in the broader market at the time. And then Rod layers on his years of experience coaching thousands of brokers, and what the lessons for brokers are, what the lessons for investors are, and it's just something. It's a way to kind of memorialize. We took a walk down memory lane, thought about everything that had happened over the 40 years, and tried to impart some wisdom on folks and help them to achieve greater results in their lives. And as I said, that's a very, very rewarding thing for me. So that's a big part of why I wanted to be involved with the project. Also, to get to spend a lot more time with my great buddy and my coach, Rod, who started out as my coach. He's now one of my best friends, and we got to spend a lot of great quality time together over the last 2.5 years writing this book, and very, very blessed to be part of it.
You just called Rod your coach and now one of your best friends. I can say the exact same thing. He started out as my coach and has become one of my best friends. And I think that's something that a lot of people can say about Rod. And it really goes back to, when I think about you guys writing this book, Rod with the Massimo Group, and really just the person you are over, however many years now, 12, 14 years, 15 years, however long it's been since you started the Massimo Group. Like, you've been about making the industry better, making your clients better. There's a tremendous amount of giving and generosity. And in this book with Bob, like, you don't need to write a book. You don't need to be on social media sharing how you do things and all this stuff. But there's a tremendous amount of generosity. And for anybody who actually listens to this show and doesn't follow both of you online, I can just attest to the fact that they're super generous with their experience and their wisdom, the things they know, with the way they get things done. They talk about it all the time. They give a tremendous amount of value for free. And so if you haven't already, both of these guys need to be a follow.
100%.
For sure.
100%.
Yep.
And if I could add something here for anybody, if you've been in commercial real estate for a minute, you probably know both of these guys by name. For anybody that is just hearing them for the first time, just as a one-liner here, New York Times called Bob Knakal the kingpin of real estate last year, and Rod Santomassimo has been his coach for I don't know how many years now, but he's also the owner of Massimo Group that coaches brokers, and he runs the Massimo Con. They've done it for 2 years. We don't know if it's going to come back. I hope it does. One of the best conferences I've been to, and sure. I think that is out there. So just a little background for it, and that's why I'm so excited about this one. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all the kind words. I do, and in 17 years, I've been running Massimo now, and
wow.
Almost 14 years of working with Bob. So why did I write this book with Bob? It was to work with Bob. That was the number one and only, really the key reason. Now, if for those you read Gladwell, what's his first name? Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point, that you learn that there are people in your life. There will always be people in your life that just change the trajectory of what you do. It's just what happens, right? So when I had the good luck of writing about Bob in my first book, Brokers Who Dominate, we just became, business partners. I would coach him. He would share me what to do. I'd help him out, and that transformed to a different relationship. Obviously, it has. It's changed the trajectory of my company. It's changed the trajectory of my life. But what I cool about this book is, guys, Bob posted yesterday that Barbara Corcoran says you must read this book.
Oh, right.
Oh, wait. We're going to get to Barbara Corcoran here.
I just wrote her name down. You said that. I just wrote her name down. I wanted to talk about it. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, then I look at the book and I look at forward by Ryan Sahan, right? I'm going, oh, okay, cheese and crackers. And then
there it is, cheese and crackers.
Steve Roth has another thing. And then the head of Vornado has a comment. So I don't know any of these people before I met Bob. No one. So there are people in your lives. You just don't know who they know. You will never know. And that's why it's so important to forge relationships with everyone you can. And some will just take you to a path you never thought possible. And so for me, writing the book with Bob was a natural of, those 14 years of hanging out and talking real estate. So why not share it?
Yeah.
And I can't wait. We haven't done this yet, but I can't wait till we get into the audio booth and do the audio book, because then we'll be actually expanding upon the stories, and we'll do that probably next month. But we need to sell some books first.
Now we're talking, because I want to hear you guys communicate the book.
Yeah, Bo likes to listen to his books as well.
But yesterday, well, we'll get into the book itself here in just a second.
Yeah,
I did want to I did want to bring up Barbara Corcoran because since we've started this show, Timmy's goal the entire time was to create the kind of show where we can get Barbara Corcoran to be our guest on the show.
It's no secret. I've said it to our followers a bunch of times. You write us a review, you hit that subscribe button, that gets us bigger clients, and one day we'll get Barbara Corcoran.
Yeah, he's been saying that for a while. So now that we know somebody who knows Barbara Corcoran, maybe we can talk offline about if there's an opportunity to actually
it'll come when it comes. It'll come when the right time is going to happen, right? But I got so excited when I saw it forward by Barbara Corcoran. I was like, oh, that's just one step closer. It'll happen when it needs to happen. But oh my God!
Yeah, let me tell you, everybody knows Barbara from Shark Tank.
Yeah.
But I've known Barbara for close to 40 years. She is such an unbelievably sharp and savvy business person, and also has a tremendously great sense of humor.
Yeah,
and probably the thing that stands out most to me, she's probably one of the nicest people you could ever meet.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. I was hoping all those things were true because she comes off that way.
Yeah.
She comes off as tough and certainly sharp and intelligent, tremendous amount of experience, background, success. She comes off that way. I was hoping that, in fact, she was as nice as she seems.
Yeah, but my wife read her book, loves her book. Of course, we love Shark Tank, but yeah, that's so cool.
Well, let's talk about selling buildings a little bit because...
Can we?
Let's
do it.
I haven't been able to read the whole book yet because it launches today.
Today's the day? No, Tuesday.
No. Like this episode will come out next Tuesday.
If you're listening as this comes out, it's coming out today.
And so if you're listening to this episode on the day that this episode drops, you can go buy the book. So
No. They can't buy a book. They can buy 20, 30, 50, 100 books.
Yeah, that's
obviously
right. I mean, you're going to want a lot of them.
You're going to want to buy it for everybody.
Yeah.
So
selling books is your next book there, Rod.
The sequel to Selling Buildings.
Yeah, selling books. Yeah.
But here's the sample chapter that you guys sent me was great, but it was on 9/11. What happened on 9/11, and it took me back because I was reading the time codes in this chapter, and this is from Bob's perspective. He's in his office in Manhattan, and the first plane flies into the building. I remember on that day, and I'm interested what you remember about that day, and Rod,
sure.
You as well. Bob, you share it in the book, but you're in your office. I was on the West Coast. I was in the Marine Corps, and I had just graduated the Arabic basic course. So I just graduated Arabic language school. It's 5:36 in the morning on the West Coast when that first plane flies. I had just gotten up like I did every morning. I got the ironing board out, and I was ironing my camis, and I would turn on the television.
Yeah.
And I turned on the television just a few minutes after the first plane had flown in.
Yeah.
And while I'm ironing my camis, the second one flies in.
Yeah.
And then the world changes.
Yeah. Yep.
And reading that chapter of this book just took me back. Like I was reliving a lot of those memories. And, my family just a couple weeks ago went to New York City for spring break, and we went to the 9/11 museum down there, and it was just incredibly well done.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this is fresher for me right now than it has been. But do you remember, how old were you in 2001?
Yeah, I was like 14 or 15, I think, because you would have been 24, 25.
Yeah.
Around that time. I was in social studies class in high school. We were about to take a test I was not prepared for. And then another teacher comes into the room and says, hey, you got to turn on the TV. So this test was stopped. We looked at the TV. We saw the second plane hit as well. I was not old enough to really comprehend the magnitude of what was happening. And I was more focused on the fact that we weren't going to take this test at that moment. No disrespect to 9/11. That's just where I was at the time as a 13 or 14-year-old. And then, we ended up going home, and then we didn't have band rehearsal that day as well. So those are the things I remember. But then, the weight really set in as we saw, mom and dad were watching the TV, and W was talking about what was going on, and just seeing the devastation there and everything. That was the first moment in my life where I saw something like that was our for my generation's first seeing of something of that magnitude.
Like first real event, like
first real event.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, like, wow, that this doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
But here it is. Yeah.
Rod, what was that day like for you?
I had taken a hiatus from brokerage, frankly. I was done with brokerage, and one of those things I was done. So I was working for a telecom firm, taking it public, and I was in the office. My CEO was dealing with some, unfortunately, health issues. So he just said, Rod, turn on TV. And I just shut down the office and went home and got to meet my family. That's,
were you in Tampa then, or where were you?
No, I was in Carolina.
Carolina. You were already in Carolina. Okay.
Yeah.
What about Bob?
Yeah, well, wow. It was, I tell the story very vividly in the book. And, don't forget, it wasn't just 9/11 in isolation.
Yeah.
We are on the heels of the Russian credit crisis, dot-com bubble bursting, a recession, a national recession. And that was just kind of the icing on the cake. But I remember sitting at my desk, and we listened to Howard Stern back in those days. And they reported that a plane flew into one of the towers. And initially they were kind of joking around about it, thinking it was just some small, prop plane that had an accident. And then it became obvious it was much more than that. Pretty immediately, the whole city was shut down. The bridges and tunnels were shut down. You couldn't get in or out of the city. The subways were shut down. So immediately, we thought, let's go to the deli and get a bunch of sandwiches and a bunch of food, because people are going to be staying in the office overnight. We had a bunch of people that lived in the outer boroughs and in Westchester, Connecticut, New Jersey. So got a bunch of food and drinks, and just hunkered down. I stayed in the office till about noon, and probably my most vivid memory of it was walking home. At the time, I lived at 59th and 2nd, and our office was on 41st Street between 5th and Madison, and walked over to 2nd Avenue, and there were a bunch of people already from downtown, had reached Midtown by noon, and we're going to be walking over the 59th Street Bridge, is right where my building was. And it was the most surreal thing I had ever experienced. Hundreds and hundreds of people walking up 2nd Avenue in complete silence. No one was talking. Every fourth or fifth person was just white, as if you dumped a bag of flour over their head, and it was all the ash from the buildings downtown.
Yeah.
And the smell, and that smell lasted probably a week of kind of like an electrical fire or rubber burning in the air. And it was really, really a horrible, horrible time. It was a difficult thing to deal with, and it was terrible, terrible time for New York. But New York, in its inimitable way, bounced back, and it was one of the inflection points we talk about in the book. Really, one of the things that really set us up for success in a big way. At 9/11, we started the business in February of 1988. By September of 01, we had 21 people. And right after 9/11, it was kind of the icing on the cake for companies.
Hey, Bob, sorry to interrupt. Before you get there, because I want you to talk about this, but I want to set up the book a little bit and how it's structured. Because I think I want people to understand, one, they can get this story and many others in the takeaways. But as I read this one chapter, it is pretty unique in the way it's structured. And Rod, I wonder if you would just give a brief feel for, like, when they read one of these chapters in the book, like, what are they going to get out of it?
Yeah, I think there's I can see it now from a different lens than a first-time reader. Obviously, I've read the book. I've lived with Bob on and off, or not lived with, but figuratively
done life with.
Done life with for 14 years. So I think we set the book up so that you can understand, we're the guides, and you know the guide hero perspective, right? So we're the guides to the reader, and to help them understand what's going on in the market at any given time throughout this 40-year history, the ebbs and flows of the marketplace, right? So if you're an investor, if you're a broker, this is the this is the journey we've all chosen, a very cyclical one indeed, right? There'll be horrendous events, such as 9/11. There'll be really, really challenging events, and we'll get into that probably a little bit about, I laugh, I don't laugh, I smile now. I smile in pride, and I hope Bob does too. Bob has said, right, I ran to the deli and I bought sandwiches. 10 years before that, Bob was living off credit cards trying to figure out, can I afford a sandwich? So we take into granted where the growth is. So in this book, is the journey for investors and brokers by breaking down deal stories. What does it mean to you? What's the lessons? We tell straight out after every deal story, this is what, if you're an investor, these are your key takeaways.
Yep.
If you're a broker, these are your key takeaways. Nice. This is what you should be learning from these stories. So that's the format of the book.
Yeah. And that's really what I was trying to kind of get on the record is this isn't just a book of stories, which is super interesting anyway. It's about, you guys really, and I think you said this earlier, Bob, you take us behind the curtain on what was going on. What were the right moves? What were the mistakes? And what are the takeaways? And the book is really for investors as well as for brokers. Bob, getting back to what happened after 9/11,
yes,
is your firm really had an inflection point at that moment in time. And so share with us, I think this is where you're going anyway, but take us back to what happened to Massey Knakal in 2001.
Yeah, so the big inflection point, we had several of them over the years, and we go into those in the book, but the 9/11 inflection point was that we had been through all the things that led up to 9/11, and then 9/11 happens. A number of companies are downsizing, want to get out of New York. Everyone was letting people go. Brokers were being let go. Architects, bankers, attorneys. Seemed like everybody was downsizing. And up to that point, Paul and I had been interviewing everyone ourselves. And we said, you know what? New York is tough. We're going to bounce back. There's so many great quality people who are out of work right now. Let's go and hire all these people, and let's go out and hire a director of HR to interview these people because we can't interview them, and let's hire them all. And we 2 years later, we had 150 people. So we hired about 125 people in 2 years.
Wow.
And of course, and it was a risky move, counterintuitive for sure.
Oh, yeah.
If the market didn't come roaring back, we would have been out of business. We almost went bankrupt a couple of times during the S&L crisis, which we talk about in the book also. But, we made a big bet on New York, bet on ourselves, hired all those people. And then 2003 comes along, and the market's really showing great signs of life, and things are coming roaring back. And, other companies were saying, hey, let's think about hiring people. We had hired them 2 years ago, and they were already trained, productive. We had opened our office in Queens, opened our office in Brooklyn. And by the time other companies were just kind of getting back in growth mode, we already had boots on the ground that were trained and actively in business. And so that was really a golden time for our company. 03, 4, 5, 6, and 7, from 01 to 2014, we 3x the competition. During that period, from 03 to 07, we 4x the competition every year. And, we were out in the boroughs before it was cool to be out in the boroughs. That was another inflection point for the company. We filled all our geographic territories, which is the way we ran the business, filled all the territories in Manhattan. We're like, okay, what do we do now? Do we get into office leasing? Do we get into mortgages? Or do we go out to Queens and start selling buildings? And at that time, we said, you know what? We don't know anything about those other service lines. Let's get out. Let's increase our geography and go open up in Queens, open up in Brooklyn. Several years later, when we had all our New York territories covered, we said, all right, what do we do now? Do we increase geographically by going to Chicago or Boston or Philly? Or do we get into more service lines? And that time we decided, look, in these other cities, we'll have to explain who we are and what we do. We have decades long relationships with so many people in New York. Let's offer more services. And we got into retail leasing and mortgage brokerage. And so there were different sets of a decision making process, different sets of circumstances that we looked at, made different decisions along the way. But each of these inflection points were very, very impactful. On what the future was going to look like. Sometimes we made good decisions, sometimes we made bad decisions, but we go into all this in the book, why the decisions we made that worked out were good, why the decisions we made that didn't work out weren't good. And again, Rod gives his perspective on the decision-making process, the decisions we made, and how others can learn from those. And Rod gives his tips about how brokers can learn from them. I give tips about what investors can get out of these things. And so I think it's the premise of the book is the journey, but it really is all about all the lessons learned through the decisions that we make. And decisions have consequences, and sometimes those decisions work out well, and sometimes they don't work out so well.
Well, during the great financial crisis, which was kind of my first inflection point in business, Rod was my coach at the time. And, it was a downturn and there wasn't hardly anything doing. And he helped me identify where there was actually transactional velocity in Kentucky, which was dollar stores.
Right.
And he helped me build a system to pursue that business.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could say it saved our company, but it was definitely an inflection point.
Yeah.
Like it took our company to a whole nother level. And I think I can trace a lot of the success I've had back to that. And so, Rod, my question is, Bob was just talking about when, downturns, massive negative events like 9/11. I learned from you first, I think, about downturn tactics. Like, what are some of the things that during a downturn, brokers or investors should be thinking about? Because naturally, we want to pull back and protect ourselves, But that's not what I heard from you when you were my coach. Like, what are some downturn tactics? What are some takeaways from this kind of idea?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'll have Bob answer for investors. He's the king of that, not me. But as far as brokers are concerned, I think, look of the biggest downturn we've had most recently is the pandemic, right? It was when there was no velocity at all. And at Massimo, we live by a simple math equation, and that is real life is greater than real estate. It's just a simple equation. Real life is greater than real estate. So during the pandemic, we coached our clients, our broker clients, to focus on the PPE issues and then the PPP programs that gave money back to people who lost based on salaries, and become advisors to their clients on how to deal with their real life issues, right? And you say, well, Rob, it's not real estate transactions. No, it's not. But it's the way to forge relationships and get those relationships to pay you back one way or another, which might be transactional. So I think, Bo, one simple hack when a downturn occurs, focus on the real life, not the real estate, and help your clients get through that issue, whatever it might be, right? And therefore, you'll be amazed how much you'll get back in return. You will be. So I think that's one really quick one. Bob, as far as investors, what would you share?
Yeah, well, I think in bad times, quote unquote bad times, the opportunity is greater than ever before. And we're seeing that now. I think today is the best buying opportunity I've ever seen in New York City. And it's
Today.
Yeah, when people are nervous and uncertain and inertia sets in, that's the time to act. And if you ask folks who have been investing for decades and decades, they will universally tell you the best deals they ever made was when they were nervous as heck and decided to pull the trigger, and in retrospect wish they bought everything in sight at the time they bought those deals. They all were purchases when things were really tough and uncertain, and turned out to be the best deals they ever made. So I think to buy real estate, I say you need two things. You need capital and you need courage. In bad times, that the second one, the courage, really comes into play. And a lot of folks take a wait and see attitude. A lot of the institutional capital, comes to a grinding halt during the uncertain times. So we're always led out of those downturns by private individuals and families who have to be accountable only to themselves, not a big organizational structure. And, you have to have guts, but ask people who have been around for a long time when they bought the best deals they ever bought, and they'll tell you during the S&L crisis in the early 90s, during the recession in the early 2000s, during the GFC, 08, 09. And it's always, those were the times the best deals are made. And I think that 4 or 5 years from now, people will look back on today and say, what the heck was I thinking sitting on my hands in 2000, in 2025? I should have been buying everything in sight. We have buildings selling in New York today for, at best, half of what they were selling for at the peak of the market, and in some cases 20% of what they were selling for at the peak of the market. So when buildings are selling for the same price per square foot they were trading for 30 years ago, something is a big red flag and a big opportunity that folks should be looking at.
Wow. Yeah.
So, Bob, I think Bob said capital and courage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
So if you're a broker, we talk about, we actually lay this out in the book, then the 2 C words I would suggest is you need conviction, and most brokers don't have it, unfortunately, but you need total conviction. Bob has total conviction. He knows he's the best. He's convicted to the practice of brokerage, and you need curiosity, and you must have curiosity. And I think that's something that I find most exciting about working with Bob is, Bob is at the forefront of implementing AI, and Bob and I are in our 60s. I hate to say this, but we are, right? And yet we're at the forefront in the industry of implementing AI. That's curiosity. What's next? What's new? What's the next thing I could do, right? So conviction and curiosity will take you a long way in brokerage and in life.
Wow. I had a question and you all might have just answered this, but when you're talking about all these stories and all these moments, and in the book, what you're explaining, there are a lot of decisions that were made that were big risk decisions that ended up paying off. And I was wondering if you were able to put into words the underlining, the driving force behind it all. There's so many different factors in these decisions individually, but if you could put in the words, the one thing underneath all of it for each of you, either that helps guide those decisions, that's always there in every decision that you're making. Does that make sense?
Timmy, I think the thing that always occurs to me is that nothing really is absolute, and nothing's a guarantee, and our business is completely a probability-based business. And all we try to do is increase the probability that what we are doing is going to be correct. And so a lot of it is looking at things empirically and trying to figure out, okay, well, this is what happened in the past. Is that going to happen again in the future? And use the best estimate that we can. And you have to have courage, and you have to just go for it. And so I think you use your knowledge base, you use your past to try to make decisions that you think have the highest probability of working out. And then you just have to be all in on it. Rod mentioned conviction. You got to really believe. You have to give it everything you have. And, one of the things I love about this business is I think it's one of the purest forms of meritocracy there is. Get out of it exactly what you put into it. And we take guesses sometimes, but you want to make guesses that will give you the highest probability of success possible. And I think that's something that people will get out of the book. Nothing is a guarantee. There's no silver bullet, nothing magic about anything in our business. All we're all trying to do is increase our probability of success. And you increase the probability of success with the more knowledge that you have, the more things you take into consideration, the lessons that you learn by seeing how similar decisions went for other folks at other times. And you just do the best you can, but you have to have an unwavering belief that what you're going to do is going to work out.
You know, and I think I heard you telling this story last week when we were in Detroit. You were talking about you'd rather have the lease than the property, that like as collateral, like the lease is more important. He was, we make these guesses, we make these bets on the future. Everything about our business has to do with things playing out in the future, like we hope they will. Like you get a great tenant who takes a majority of a building, they're paying great rent, and they've got a long-term lease. All of that is predicated on the fact that they have to make it. They have to survive in the future to be able to pay that rent and all that. Like everything is somewhat of a bet on the come, and that's why this business has inherent risk. I think we forget about that risk sometimes. But you were just talking about probabilities. I heard you say, probabilities, empirical. You're the most numbers-driven person I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like, what's the number of how many buildings you've sold as of today?
2,351 as of last week.
Yeah, so he didn't say about.
No, he knows.
He didn't
exactly.
say over 2,000. Right. And the first time we had him on the show, I asked him how's the market, and he just spit out all the numbers.
Yeah.
Like he's a number-driven guy. You've got a baseball card, which is awesome, with all the numbers of your career, like you're a major league ball player.
Yeah.
Well, part of what I want to ask you is do you think you're that numbers-driven because you were a baseball player? Or do you think you loved baseball because it's so data-driven? Or
it was
hold on. Before Bob answers that question, we skip these things. We're like, oh yeah, whatever, right? And this is what I talk about data, right? Bob just threw out, I've sold 2,351 buildings, okay? And we all went, oh, wow, that's wild, right? Bob, how many years have you been doing this?
Coming on my 41st anniversary on July 16th, it'll be my 41-year anniversary. I'll be starting year 42.
Okay, so folks, you can take out your calculators, but I know for a fact it's over one building a week. Over one building a week for 4 decades, right? He is sold. Put the number of 2,351, and I'm not
57 a year.
I'm not putting Bob on a pedestal. I'm just saying we throw out numbers and say, "Oh, that's great." No, understand what's going on here. You're selling one freaking building a week. Okay,
in the most competitive market in the world.
In the most competitive market in the world. So, Bob, answer the question, but I want to put perspective what you're doing, right? Because it matters. It matters, and then we can figure out why we're doing that. Well, this is a different story, but that number matters. Numbers matter.
Yeah.
So, Bob, want to talk about why data is so important to you?
I think to answer the question, Bo, I really think it was my love of baseball that led me to love statistics. As a kid, I collected baseball cards, and I spent a lot more time looking at the back of the card than I did looking at the front of the card. And played baseball ever since I was a little kid, played through high school, played through college, and even kept track of I was a pitcher. I kept track of my pitching stats even back in Little League.
Wow.
And, always was very, very focused on stats and numbers. And it definitely all comes from baseball. I think, my baseball business card started as kind of a goof. So I had a client who I worked with, had done several deals with. I hadn't done deals with him in the past few years, and suggested he talk to the mortgage brokers in Old Co. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to talk to the guys at JLL." And I said, "Oh, well, that's Sal. I've been at JLL for 4 years." And he's, "Oh, I forgot. I thought you were still at Cushman." So I put the baseball card together as kind of a goof just to send to him. And the young guys in the office said, "Hey, BK, this is the coolest thing we've ever seen. You got to mass produce these." And, at this point, I'm now on the 3rd edition of the baseball card, and I probably autographed 25,000 of them. And it's become a cool thing. But the integration of statistics and baseball and real estate has really been a great combination of factors for me.
I've got he wasn't a rookie then, but I've got the rookie version of his baseball card.
Oh,
like the
no way.
first edition autograph
No way.
of it. Yeah. I've got it. I should have brought it.
Yeah.
But we'll show that on it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I'm sure it's worth something at this point.
Yeah. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Well, when Bob was talking about when you make a decision, the knowledge, you got to have that knowledge. You know, it takes me back to last time you came on and you were talking about during the pandemic, what you were doing, which was walking through the streets of New York. Like you wanted to see and get the data yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And again, it's like the opportunity presented itself because the velocity is down. And so you just took to the streets and started, you know, going through the streets of New York and getting all that data. You know, to me, the underlying thing is the data and the curiosity. From somebody on, like my perspective of somebody on the outside here, it's like it's very easy to see why Bob has sold 2,351 buildings one a week, because he does not stop getting all the information he can possibly get. And I think whether you're in commercial real estate or not, that is one of the best things you could do with anything that you're doing to help protect you. Well, not really protect you, but to take those risks.
Differentiate you, Timmy, to differentiate you. So everybody in New York's talking about office to resi conversions. Oh, there's a lot going on. A lot of office to resi conversion. A lot. I was asked yesterday I spoke at a TREP panel, and the issue came up about office to resi conversions. I said, yeah, there's 57 going on now for 21.4 million square feet. Like that tells you, hey, this guy understands. Just say there's a lot going on. Anybody could say that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, Bo, here's the rookie card, the very first one.
Yep, that's it.
Which was the 1970 Topps, the first year I collected baseball cards in a real way, and you know all the stats on the back.
Oh, that's great.
The second one was the 1968, which I thought was a very, very beautiful card, and the current one is 1972. And wait till you see what's coming out next year. It's going to be the best one yet by a mile, going back to the 50s, but it's going to be really super special.
Oh,
and
I can't wait.
Well, I don't know if you can see behind me. I've got a plant. I've got a plant here, but that space on the shelf could be where something else belongs. So
yeah, baseball card.
I don't mind framing something and putting it right there over my shoulder. And
I gotta say something with the baseball cards too, because those are beautiful baseball cards. I just spent in the last month, I designed a bunch of baseball cards for Tisby. So from the design standpoint of those cards, they look fantastic. They're going to look good because they got your face on it anyway. But the way they look design wise, beautiful.
Hey, look, we've got a few minutes left, and so I've kind of been saving this question, not related to the book specifically, but I want both of you to answer this question. And Rod, I'll start with you.
Okay.
You've been in coaching for 17 years. You were a broker before that. You've done some other things. You've been in the industry. Well, you were reading leases when you were in high school, right?
Yep.
So you've seen deals happen for over 40 years at this point. Here's the question. How are deals different now than they were 40 years ago? And like leave technology out of it, because that's sort of yes, technology is way different. But like, how are deals different now than they were then?
They're no different to me. None. I'll take tech out because my first answer was directly going to tech and how I'm seeing deals being done differently with using AI. But from a standpoint of getting a deal done, going out and finding the business, winning the business, and fulfilling the business, that is the cycle that a continuum that we've all lived for me, you know, you're right. It's been over 40 years of reading leases and all that stuff. So find, win, fulfill hasn't changed. Now, the way we do it, and more teams are involved, I guess, today. Less of people doing our own, more delegation, more reliance on other people, and yes, technology. But look, and I understand this. AI is scary. I get it. And based on what I'm seeing happen as of this morning, it's going to be a major industry changer. But the relationship with the person will never change. It won't. People want to deal with people. As far as in my lifetime, I hope that continues to be true. So I don't think that's changed at all. Find, win, fulfill. That's your job as a broker. Go and do that, and you'll be fine.
So, Bob, with thinking about buyers and sellers of buildings, would you have the same answer, or have you seen there be a shift over the last 40 years?
No, I think Rod is mainly correct in that the business fundamentally is the same exact business it always has been and probably always will be. I think one major change I've seen is that I think in the 80s when I started, real estate was much more of a gunslinger's game, and it really wasn't such a generally accepted asset class. I think today the appeal of real estate investing is much greater. If you look at the allocation that institutions have of how they're allocating their capital, I bet real estate now makes up 3 or 4 times what it made up in the 80s as a percentage of their total assets. So from that perspective, there are more market participants, more players, more buyers out there, which requires more elbow grease from a broker's perspective, because you have to qualify these people. Are they real? Are they serious? Can they really do what they want to do? But I think, fundamentally it's the same business. There's just a lot more people in it today. And so that brings its own set of challenges with it, but also opportunity, opportunity for folks to get better results on what they're selling. Clearly, if you have a larger audience of potential buyers, the probability is that you're going to get a better price.
Yeah.
Nice. How's BKREA going?
BKREA is going great. We're about 14 months in. We've sold 9 buildings for about $200 million. We have 47 exclusive listings for about $2.5 billion. We've signed in the past 2 weeks, signed 2 pretty substantial contracts, one for $40 million, one for $50 million. And we're trading paper on a number of deals right now, and I couldn't be happier. It's great to be back to my entrepreneurial roots.
Yeah.
And lots of wood to chop, but having a lot of fun. And like I always say, I feel so blessed that I stumbled into something that not only is my vocation, but it's my hobby. And I totally, totally love doing this. Would never see myself doing anything but this. And, got a long way to go. I think, Pete Rose, somebody wrote to me the other day, Pete Rose had over 4,200 hits in his career. So I always said I wanted to get to 3,000 buildings sold. Maybe I should be looking at 4,200.
I think so. My goodness. Well, the website looks amazing, but I do see something here. It says we've done 2,350.
It wasn't updated last week, obviously, so I got to get on our tech folks.
Yes, someone needs to get you got to get on somebody on that. It looks amazing, though. It looks great for what it's worth, and congratulations.
Yeah. Well, guys, you've given us about an hour. I know it's incredibly valuable time. We're very appreciative. It's great to have you back on. Congratulations on the new book. I can't wait to get my hands on it and read the entire thing beyond the one chapter I've seen so far. It's so well written. I can hear your voices as I read the chapter. Like when I get to the italicized, right, that's Rod's words are in italics.
Okay.
In the book. And so like I can hear his voice behind that.
Yeah.
I can hear BK when in his sections of the book, and it's just a real joy for me to read what I have so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. So,
I can't wait to read it for what it's worth. I can't wait to read it either. So I would take one and I would read it, or give me yours when you're done.
You both have your copies in a few days. You will.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to read it. I really can't. This like just talking to you all today has got me excited about it. I don't think I've ever read a commercial real estate book.
I don't know. I didn't know you'd ever read a book.
Well, not many. I can name the number of books I've read. I'll Bob Knakal you right now. 7. No, I've read much more.
What was the average number of pages of each book, though, Timmy?
The average number of
pages?
300 to 500.
Oh, I thought he was going to say, well, the coloring books were only.
Yeah, I got some big coloring books. That's true. That's true. Well, why don't you all look at the camera there and tell our listeners what you want them to know the most before we go.
Easy. Selling Buildings, available May 20th on Amazon.com. Selling Buildings by Bob Knakal and Rod Santomassimo. Get your copies immediately.
If it were up to you, how would they buy the book?
Amazon.com.
Amazon.com.
Amazon.com. So we'll...
Great. The link is in the show notes. You all could go to it right now. Nice and easy.
Yep.
Nice and easy. Bob, you got anything to add?
No, just great to be with you guys. Always a lot of laughs and good real estate talk. And thanks so much for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Oh, the pleasure's ours. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I love you guys. Thank you.
Love you.
Y'all. Bye, Alice.
Bye, Alice.
Alice.
Yay!
Now I just found out I'll be coaching Bob for another 40 years because now he's moved from 3,000 to 4,200.
Hey, that's good job security.
You just have to accelerate his transactional velocity.
Yeah,
and you can retire quicker.
Right. Just so you know, Pete Rose had 4,256 hits. So I got to get 4,257 buildings sold.
Well, man, you got the health
Bob,
and the
you're
energy.
not competing against Pete Rose. You're competing. So, Bob, I guess the real question is, who has sold the most buildings in their career? Do we know?
I think it has to be me, not because I'm a conceited jerk, but because the nature of the business has changed. Think about baseball, how they only started keeping closer data from the 70s, because before the 70s there were no closers.
That's
like
right.
80% of the games were complete games. Before the 80s, every broker was a generalist. Henry Hart Rice, who the sales broker of the year, most ingenious deal of the year award is named after here. The guy sold buildings, did mortgages, did leasing, did property management. Brokers did everything. Nobody specialized in one thing. So I'd be shocked if any individual broker sold more than me for that reason, because it's only since the 80s that people really hunkered down and specialized in something.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Who is number 2 in New York, do you think?
It could be Aaron Youngrice, but and nobody really knows. I'm the only knucklehead who has a spreadsheet of every single sale.
So it's going to be Bob Knakal.
Well, that's the point.
Look, and nobody else could probably nobody else could prove how many they've sold. So
Yeah,
That's true. That's a great point. That's a great point.
it makes total sense.
Can you imagine being the world's foremost sales investment broker? It's crazy.
No, it's nuts. Yeah.
No,
Let's go.
there's only one person on the planet that knows what that feels like, and I'm just glad I know him.
I know.
there you go.
And I'm glad you're not a conceited jerk.
I know.
That was my biggest takeaway the first time I met you.
Yeah.
Which was years ago, I think, at a Massimo immersion event. I was like, man, that guy's nice. He talked to me. He's a normal person.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't treat me like I was some idiot kid or hick from Kentucky or whatever. He was just genuinely nice.
Yeah.
And you've consistently been that way. Just like I said before, generous with what you're willing to share in your time. So
Right.
I appreciate that. You know, I have a buddy, Tom Mulaney at CB, and I worked at CB my 3 summers in college. And my 3rd summer, I worked as a runner, like an assistant, called it a runner back then for Tom. And I get together with him a couple of times a year to have dinner. And he always says, you know, Bobby, I got to tell you, the thing I love the most about you is you're the same exact kid you were when you were in college. Nothing about you has changed. And, you know, I'll take that as a reference today.
great compliment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
All right, go sell some buildings.
That's
Go
right.
sell some buildings. That's right. Go sell some
Go
buildings.
sell
Bob.
some buildings. I'll try to do the same. Thanks, guys.
You got to get to 4257.
4257. Come on, baby.
Well, you've heard him say BFK, right? The previous Massimo Con, Rod kept saying Bob effing Knakal the whole time.
In an earlier iteration, Rod used to call me BCACK. which was for Bob Cheese and Crackers Knakal.
Okay.
Change the cheese and crackers to
Yes.
to F.
If you look on page 219, the very last page of the book is the only time in the entire book that there is in the very last page it says this is why he's BFK.
I didn't notice that. I'm looking it up right now. I didn't see that. 219?
It's the only time I just drop an F bomb the entire book.
Nice.
It's awesome. Love it.